For 4 years, Star Trek had a massive 10 alien villains crossover. Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before starting the video, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button and give this video a like up. For 4 years, the biggest Star Trek alien villain crossover has been gradually happening on Star Trek Lower Decks, but in the animated comedy's opening credits. Created by Mike McMahon, Star Trek Lower Decks is set in the late 24th century of Star Trek, the Next Generation's era. This means everything Star Trek up to that point, from Star Trek Enterprise to Star Trek the original series, TNG, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Star Trek Voyager, and the first 10 Star Trek movies are ripe for homage or parody. And this includes the numerous aliens Starfleet and the United Federation of Planets have faced. Star Trek Lower Decks opening credits evolve throughout the show's 5 seasons, set to the majestic score by Chris Westlake. Star Trek Lower Decks titles showcase the U.S. Cerritos and its misadventures warping around the galaxy. After the names of the 4 main Star Trek Lower Decks cast members, Tawny Newsome, Jack Quaid, Noel Wells, and Eugene Cordero, the Cerritos runs into a region of space where Starfleet's enemy aliens are fighting each other. As a California-class support ship, the Cerritos wisely turns tail and runs away. With each season of Star Trek Lower Decks, more and more aliens show up for the big fight in the opening credits. Here are all 10 aliens involved in Star Trek Lower Decks' main title showdown. The Borg. Logically, the U.S. Cerritos hits the bricks in Star Trek Lower Decks opening credits at the sight of several Borg cubes fighting Romulan warbirds. The Borg Collective are the most fearsome threat to the United Federation of Planets and the entire galaxy in the late 24th century. In Star Trek Lower Decks timeframe, the Borg are at their mightiest. Led by the malevolent Borg Queen, Alice Krige, Susanna Thompson, the Borg have attacked the Federation multiple times, although they have always been defeated, primarily by Captain Jean-Luc Picard, Patrick Stewart, and the crew of the U.S. Enterprise D and E. The Romulans. Battling it out with the Borg are several warbirds belonging to the Romulan Star Empire. One of the Federation's oldest foes, the Romulans are a secretive and insidious military society. In Star Trek Lower Decks timeframe, the Romulans have just become aware their sun will go supernova. However, they're steadfast enemies of the Federation during Lower Decks. Interestingly, Star Trek Lower Decks premiered on Paramount Plus in 2020 after Star Trek Picard, and the sight of Romulans fighting the Borg can be seen as a nod to how the Romulans acquired a derelict Borg cube and turned it into the Artifact, a Borg reclamation site, in Star Trek Picard Season 1. The Packlids. In Star Trek Lower Decks Season 2's opening credits, Packlids clump ships and Klingon birds of prey join the big fight between the Borg and the Romulans. The Packlids may be the dumbest of the alien foes introduced in Star Trek The Next Generation. The Packlids returned in Star Trek Lower Decks, and they were still imbeciles, but they were also dangerous. The Packlids nearly destroyed the U.S. Cerritos, and they framed Captain Carol Freeman, Don Lewis, for blowing up Packard Planet. The Klingons. In Star Trek Lower Decks late 24th century, the Klingon Empire are allies of the Federation, and they fought and won Star Trek Deep Space Nine's Dominion War together. The Klingons are led by Chancellor Goran J.G. Hertzler, who became leader of the Empire at the end of DS9. Klingons and Starfleet may be on friendly political terms, but the warrior race generally frowns upon humans, and many Starfleet officers don't enjoy being around Klingons either. But if it's a good day to die, Klingons will do so besides Starfleet if honor demands it. The Crystalline Entity. In Star Trek Lower Decks Season 3's opening credits, the overwhelming power of the Borg meets its match in the Crystalline Entity, which joins the fray with the Borg, Romulans, Packlids, and Klingons. Introduced in Star Trek: The Next Generation Season 1, the crystalline entity is a massive, snowflake-shaped organism with the power to wipe out all life on a planet. The first crystalline entity was destroyed by the U.S. Enterprise D after it was responsible for thousands of deaths. However, Star Trek Lower Deck Season 2, Episode 6, I, Excretus, revealed that there are multiple crystalline entities in the galaxy. The original crystalline entity first appeared in Star Trek: The Next Generation Season 1's data lore, when a reactivated lore, Brent Spiner, tried to feed the crew of the U.S. Enterprise D to the entity. The crystalline entity fled after this initial encounter with the Enterprise, but it returned in Star Trek: The Next Generation Season 5's wiping out a Federation colony on Malona IV. The Enterprise D attempt to communicate with the crystalline entity, but it was destroyed by the resonance from graviton emissions. Still, the crystalline entity remains a popular alien life form with TNG fans. The Whale Probe. In Star Trek Lower Deck Season 4's opening credits, the Whale Probe and the Breen join the growing alien conflagration the U.S. Cerritos flees from. Introduced in Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home, the Whale Probe is an unexplained extraterrestrial entity that nearly destroyed Earth as it searched for humpback whales. Admiral James T. Kirk, William Shatner, and the former crew of the U.S. Enterprise time-traveled to 1986 San Francisco and brought 2 humpback whales back to the future. After communicating with the whales, the probe was satisfied and retreated. The Breen, first seen in Star Trek Deep Space Nine, although previously mentioned in Star Trek The Next Generation, the Breen Confederacy are mysterious aliens never seen without their helmets and refrigeration suits. The Breen allied with the Dominion and nearly conquered the Federation during the Dominion War. The Breen made a cameo in Star Trek Lower Decks, but Star Trek Discovery revealed more about the renamed Breen Imperium in the 32nd century by introducing Lac, Elias Tufexis, the Breen Scion, and the first of the Breen to be seen without his helmet. The Tholians. In Star Trek Lower Decks' 5th and final season on Paramount+, the opening credits alien fight turns into an all-out brawl as 3 more villains join the conflagration: the Tholians, the Hand of Apollo, Michael Forrest, and Viger. The Tholians are an insect-like crystalline race who first appeared in Star Trek the original series, The Tholian Web. Tholians are known for their tactic of creating an energy net spun by their starships. First contact between Tholians and United Earth occurred in Star Trek Enterprise, but Tholians are often mentioned yet rarely seen in Star Trek Apollo's Hand. The Borg Cube in Star Trek Lower Decks' opening credits is grasped by the unforgettable green hand of Apollo. Apollo used his giant green hand to trap the Starship Enterprise in Star Trek the original series Season 2's Who Mourns for Adamace, which revealed an alien being claiming to be the Greek demigod Apollo living on the planet Pollux IV. According to Apollo, he and the Greek pantheon were explorers who visited Earth 5,000 years earlier. Although Apollo later claimed he was born on Earth to Zeus and the mortal woman Leto. After Captain Kirk and the Enterprise destroyed Apollo's power source, the so-called Greek god turned himself into energy and vanished. Viger. Last but not least, Viger makes a startling appearance as the final alien villain in Star Trek Lower Deck Season 5's opening credits. Introduced in Star Trek the motion picture, Viger appeared to be a vast energy cloud of enormous destructive power heading toward Earth. Intercepted by the U.S. Enterprise, commanded by Admiral Kirk, Viger was revealed to be a massive sentient starship that was originally the Earth space probe Voyager 6. Rebuilt by living machines, Viger journeyed home to Earth seeking its creator. Viger combined with Commander Will Decker, Stephen Collins, and Lieutenant Ilya Persis Kambata, and ascended into another state of being. But in Star Trek Lower Deck Season 5's opening credits, V'ger is back and tips the scales in the big alien brawl the U.S. Cerritos warps away from. For 4 thrilling years, the galaxy of Star Trek had been witnessing a convergence of its most notorious villains in a massive crossover event that turned the fate of the universe on its head. This phenomenon, dubbed the Great Crossover of Villains, began with the appearance of the Nexus Rift, a mysterious cosmic anomaly that offered unimaginable power to those daring enough to seize it. The Nexus Rift emerged in the Alpha Quadrant, pulsing with an energy that attracted the attention of 10 infamous adversaries: Khan Noonien Singh, the Borg Queen, Gul Dukat, Lore, Tew, a Romulan commander, a Gorn captain, Dr. Eric Sung, a Hydrogen leader, and a Kazan leader. Each of these villains had their own reasons for wanting to harness the Rift's power, but they quickly realized that their individual pursuits would benefit from collaboration, albeit a tenuous one. As the villains began to gather, whispers of their intentions spread throughout the galaxy. Starfleet, alert to the potential threat, mobilized its forces, led by the legendary captains who had once faced these adversaries. Captain Jean-Luc Picard of the U.S. Enterprise E, Captain Benjamin Sisko of Deep Space Nine, and Captain Catherine Janeway of the U.S. Voyager united to confront the looming danger. Little did they know that the battles that lay ahead would test their limits and forge unexpected alliances. Flickered ominously as the villains convened on a nearby asteroid, each with their own agenda, but united by their thirst for power. Khan, the genetically engineered tyrant from the 20th century, stood at the forefront. His chiseled features and piercing gaze exuded charisma and ambition. With the power of the Rift, he declared, "We can reclaim what is rightfully ours. I will not rest until I have my empire restored." The Borg Queen, with her chilling calmness, replied, "Your ambition is admirable, Khan, but futile. The Borg will assimilate this power. Together, we will enhance the collective beyond imagination." Gul Dukat, the crafty former leader of Cardassia, smirked. "You underestimate the potential of betrayal, my dear Borg Queen. We will see who stands at the pinnacle of power when this is all over." Lore, the malevolent android, chimed in with a gleeful tone. "Why bother with unity when chaos is so much more entertaining? Let us see who among us is the most cunning." The Romulan commander, shrouded in secrecy, added, "We could use this rift to destabilize the Federation. Imagine the chaos we could unleash, crippling their defenses before they even realize what's happening." The Gorn captain, Dr. Sung, the Hydrogen leader, and the Kazan leader listened intently, each weighing their options. It was clear that while they shared a common goal, trust would be a fleeting commodity among them. Meanwhile, in the heart of Starfleet Command, the news of the Nexus Rift and the gathering of villains sent shockwaves through the ranks. Captain Picard called an emergency meeting of his senior staff aboard the U.S. Enterprise E. "Number 1, he began, addressing Commander William Riker, "We have a grave situation on our hands. The villains we thought we had defeated are joining forces, and if we do not act quickly, they could threaten the very foundation of the Federation. Sir, we need to gather as much intelligence as possible about the Rift and its effects," Riker suggested. "If we can understand what they're after, we can devise a strategy to counteract them." Counselor Dina Troy, sensing the tension in the room, added, "I can feel their determination. They are willing to go to great lengths to obtain this power." In another corner of the galaxy, Captain Sisko was busy preparing the U.S. Defiant for battle. "This time, I won't allow Dukat to slip through my fingers," he vowed. "We need to be ready for anything." "Agreed," replied Kira Nerys, his trusted first officer. "We can't let them exploit this rift to gain an upper hand." On board the U.S. Voyager, Captain Janeway gathered her crew. "We've faced these villains before, and we know their tactics. It's time to take the fight to them. We'll make sure they understand that Starfleet won't back down." As the captains rallied their crews, a sense of unity began to form among the various ships. Each captain prepared for the inevitable confrontation, determined to protect the galaxy from the impending threat. The heroes moved quickly, deploying several ships to the location of the Nexus Rift. As they arrived, the scene was chaotic. The villains had already begun their attempts to harness the rift's power, creating a dangerous field of energy around it. The U.S. Defiant, under Sisko's command, led the charge. "We're taking the offensive," Sisko ordered as they engaged the villains' defenses. Energy beams lit up the void as the Defiant fired at a group of Borg drones trying to secure a perimeter around the rift. Meanwhile, the Enterprise E swooped in, targeting Khan and his followers. "Khan, this ends now," Picard shouted through the comms, his voice echoing with authority. "Picard," Khan laughed, his eyes gleaming with disdain. "You are but a fleeting shadow of what I have become." As the battle raged on, it became clear that the combined might of the villains was formidable. Gul Dukat took advantage of the chaos to engage Sisko directly, relishing the chance to settle their old scores. "Did you think you could defeat me again, Sisko?" Dukat taunted as he maneuvered his ship to flank the Defiant. But Sisko was ready. "You've underestimated our resolve before, Dukat. This time, you'll regret crossing me." As the conflict intensified, the villains began to realize that their infighting would be their downfall. Khan and Dukat's mutual animosity became apparent, leading to a confrontation that momentarily distracted them from the heroes' advance. "Your obsession with revenge blinds you, Khan," Dukat yelled, his ship's phasers targeting Khan's vessel. "Silence, this is not the time for your delusions of grandeur," Khan shot back, but the rivalry only deepened, leaving them open to attack. At the same time, Lore took advantage of the confusion. He had devised a plan to play the villains against one another, manipulating their egos to further fracture their alliances.